child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This is someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Georgette Truen. I am the host for Fight CPS. We'll talk with Miss G. And I have with me today Mr. Davis, the man himself. Hi, Mr. Davis.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Doing very well. Doing very well. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this to you or to Grace, the producer, but you know, I'd like to do these shows more often, maybe even daily with you, and see if we can get the word out to more people out there. So we'll see. I've been involved in a real big trial up in Sacramento regarding CPS. And last week we found out that we won the case. The case was thrown out by the judge at the jurisdictional hearing, which is rare. And the children, triplets plus a 2-year-old, were returned to the parents.
Wow.
And that case involved many medical doctors, expert witnesses, and it's just been taking a lot of my time. And now that case is over, so I'm free to, I have a lot more free time now to help people, you know, online, on Facebook, on the internet, and help you spread the word. So if you're interested, I'd be interested, and I'd make myself available for that. Today I was supposed to be in court in trial on that Sacramento case, and I'm here with you today because I didn't have to go to court. The case was thrown out last week.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And yes, I would love to do that with you, Mr. Davis. And a lot of people actually would love to have you on the shows as well, because they have a lot of questions. And the reason I asked you today, sir, with me on this show is because oftentimes I get callers who think and believe in their hearts that they're going to have their children back on the first initial hearing after 72 hours of the children being removed. And that's the social worker tells them you need to sign a safety plan, or you need to sign these documents in order for you to have your kids back in the initial hearing. And oftentimes they wait and they listen to the social worker giving them classes and doing this and doing that. And after they complete all the case plan, everything, then they still don't get their children back. and they think that they don't need an attorney. And I told them a lot of times they need a juvenile dependency attorney immediately before, before even going forward to hearing number one. And oftentimes they also tell me that the social worker tells them that they don't need an attorney and that they shouldn't hire an attorney. And they have a say so on the attorney being a bad attorney, and he or she is not going to do anything for you, and to stick with their court appointed attorney. So there's so many questions people have, and I would like you to address this particular matter, please.
I'm 63 years old, and I have seen a lot of stuff in these CPS cases since I did my first CPS case in January of 1989. And since that time, I've done cases all over California in many of the different counties. And things are generally the same, which is bad for parents, in most counties. And in some counties, things are a lot worse.
Right.
And it's hard to communicate this to people because people believe in their government.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that they will be treated fairly. I think they should believe that, but it's not true. It's not true all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like me asking you, if the police came to you and say, Georgette, did you rob the bank on Saturday? Well, whether you did or not, it probably would be best for you to say, I need to speak to my lawyer. That's your right in the United States. It's your right here in California. And so many people, when they're approached by social workers, think that, hey, I can talk to the social worker. I can outthink the social worker. I can outtalk the social worker.
Right.
And the social worker will be my friend.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I've learned from suing social workers is that they get a lot of training. And it's training that most parents don't have. And they can get information, they can make parents do things with simple manipulations. Let me give you I just talked to someone this morning, if you can believe this. This case is in another county in Northern California. And the social worker informed this mother, don't hire Davis. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot in life I don't know about. CPS cases, I'm a freaking expert.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like the police telling you, hey, don't hire Johnny Cochran. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all know that Johnny Cochran was one of the best attorneys ever in the United States. So can you imagine a social worker telling a parent, hey, don't hire Davis. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, that person thinks that they can trust the social worker.
Right.
This is the lady that has your kids. If she was your friend, you'd have your kids.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't need to call Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, think about it. Why don't they want you to hire Davis? Well, mainly because Davis fights.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because Davis will sue a social worker for civil rights violations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the other side wants you to hire me? No. So you have to take the information you get from a social worker with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
I've had allegations. I don't know if they're true, but people have told me more than from one county. Hey, if you hire Davis, you'll never get your kids back. We're just never going to give you your kids back.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I say, did you get that recorded? Because that's a serious violation, serious lawsuit, serious civil rights violations. Why is it a social worker will be afraid or concerned or have any kind of opinion about whether you should hire me or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, Leah says they lie and lie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say something, and Georgette, you're going to disagree with me. You're going to disagree with me.
I know.
The cases that we get and that we hear from are where there is social worker abuse. Okay? A lot of people are accused of different things. And a lot of times it's not true, or it's not true to the extent that the social worker is saying. So what happens is the social worker sometimes tells you, hey, don't worry, you're going to get your kids back. And if that happens, I would be the first one to say, I'm thankful that you get your kids back.
Mm-hmm.
Is that necessarily true all the time, even if they say it? No. Because there's so many levels to the approval of you getting your child back, including social worker supervisors, their supervisors, perhaps their ARA, which is the top level supervisor in that office.
Mm-hmm.
The minor's attorney has to agree with it. Social worker doesn't have any real contact or authority or control over the minor's attorney. And the judge has to agree with it. On rare occasions, I have seen judges nix deals between social worker and parent,
Mm-hmm.
where the social worker wanted to send the child home,
Mm-hmm.
and the judge said no.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a case like that in Alameda County last week. The social worker wanted to begin overnight visits with my client. Judge said no. Everybody agreed, including the minor's attorney. Judge said no. So here were our alternatives. Set the case for trial with a judge who already said no overnight visits,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or go along with the judge and file a 388 in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess, how adamant and how much money do you have to try to fight a judge that's already ruling against you? Okay, so, if a social worker says, hey, you're getting your kids back, I hope you do.
Mm-hmm.
I sincerely hope you do. You didn't need me, and you get your kids back. Would I bet money that that's going to happen? No. The odds are not with you. Because, someone told me recently, hey, the social worker said, next week I'm getting my kid back at the next hearing. And my reaction all the time in my head is, well, that's great. Except if that were true, why don't you have your kids now?
Mm-hmm.
You see, social worker has the discretion to give your kids back to you at any time. At any time. So, you got to be very careful. The other thing is, in California, at the jurisdictional and dispositional phase of the case, some social workers say, okay, we're going to give you your child back, but you have to plead no contest or admit some form of child abuse or being a risk for child abuse. And you have to do certain counseling and programs for the next 6 months. What kind of counseling and programs? Well, it's generally an hour of parenting a week. It might be 1 or 2 hours of counseling per week. It might be 1 or 2 hours of drug rehabilitation. It might be driving to, drug facility, testing facility to be tested every week. It might be going to group counseling with other people who have other CPS cases.
Mm-hmm.
So just saying, yes, give me my kids back, I'll agree to anything. That's not what you think all of the time. Now, is it a good way to get your kids back? Yeah. Another good way could be, let me go to trial. Because if you're willing to give me my kids back at the jurisdictional and dispositional phase of the case, you don't have evidence to keep the child away from me. You just don't want to have a trial and be exposed that you don't have evidence. Because if the judge dismisses the case, all that federal money that you're getting, that the social worker is getting for the case, that's gone. That's gone. But if you agreed to plead no contest and do the services and get your kids back, you get to be under the supervision of the social worker for the next 6 to 12 months. You get to be under the supervision of the judge for the next 6 to 12 months, right? And if that's okay for you, you being the parent or the client, it's okay for me. But just don't think, hey, they're going to give me my kids back and they're going to close the case. Okay, that rarely, if ever, happens.
I actually, with all the numbers of people that call me, that never happens. So again, I have, as you know, sir, I work from 7:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night. And I kid you not, I get calls even after 9:30 at night. And they all tell me the same thing. Georgette, I wish I would have listened to you. Georgette, I wish we would have hired when it was a CPS investigation. And they don't understand that the most important part is the CPS investigation part. And when you go to, well, because when they go to an office later on into the case, they expect to be for the case to be handled the same way. It's not going to be handled the same way.
Georgette, I talked to a woman this morning on a Zoom call, and that was the first time I'd ever seen her. But I looked in our computer records, and I had talked to her in December of last year. And the first thing she told me was, Mr. Davis, since I talked to you in December, I've had 5 attorneys. I'm on my 5th attorney. And these aren't even court-appointed attorneys. These are all private attorneys. She said, the amount of money I've paid out on this case, I should have just hired you from the beginning. She said, I need you to tell me what I need to do now. Now, the last thing I would ever say is, I told you so. But I told you so. And here's the thing, Georgette, and I tell this to people all the time. When I was, a 5-year attorney, I would try to beat it into your head about what's happening with these cases and why you might not want to trust the social worker and what the social worker is saying. Maybe. All right. And I know you don't like to hear this, Georgette, but I'll tell you, in my opinion, there are some social workers that do a good job. We just don't hear about those cases. But when you're betting your money on your kids, in your kids' lives, you got to play the odds. And the odds are, social worker may not be telling me the whole truth, right? And you might want to listen to an attorney. I talked to a lady over the weekend, and I pleaded with her to get an attorney or to talk to an attorney in her area. She wasn't from the Southern California area. As a matter of fact, she was from back east. And she texted me over the weekend, and she says, well, you know what I've learned? And I thought she was going to say, I need to get an attorney. And the next text bubble comes up, and it says, I'm going to be my best advocate. And I responded like, no, don't do that. Get a lawyer. Find someone you can trust. You might have to talk to 10 people, 10 lawyers. But get a lawyer, please. Because with all due respect, you don't know the law. You don't know the rules of evidence. You don't know the rules of procedure. You don't know the rules of court. You don't know the local rules of court. And you don't know the case law from the United States Supreme Court, from the California Supreme Court, to the Court of Appeals. You just don't know it. And, it'd be like me. I use this example all the time. A few months ago, I was told by the dealership, hey, Mr. Davis, your car needs a new transmission, right? Now, I had a couple choices. I could say to myself, okay, here's the key, fix the transmission, charge me a few $1,000s. Or I could have said, let me go down to Pet Boys, buy the Chilton book on cars for my make and model and year, then buy all the tools and parts that I need and the supplies, because I don't have any of those. And I could have tried to change the transmission myself. How well do you think that would have gone?
Not well.
And I'm a smart guy. I just can't change transmissions. You know why? I don't have the knowledge or experience. But yet people want to go into court thinking they can do it because it's real justice. You know, at this point, I want to refer everyone to my YouTube channel. Type in "what is justice" and there will be a video that comes up. It's a 7-minute video. It might be the most important video I've ever made because it explains what you think justice is and what real justice is. And people look at that and they go, wow, Mr. Davis, I never thought that. I never knew that. Or, you know what? I knew that, but I never really thought it was true. I was hoping that it wouldn't be true.
Right.
After 35 years, you know, it's a difficult thing for you to go into court and represent yourself. I'm sorry, it just is. Just like you can't do open heart surgery by yourself.
No.
You just can't do it. You don't have the knowledge, experience, training, supplies, and tools.
And also, Mr. Davis, oftentimes people call me and they say they want to sue the social workers. And I ask them, do you have your children with you?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, but the children are still in CPS custody. And I said, okay, were the children abused? I said, Mr. Davis always says, as long as you can prove that there's abuse or neglect or severe, like really bad situation the kids are in, and they continue to be in, then yes, you can have a civil lawsuit. Am I right, sir?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer, and I'll tell you why. It depends. It depends on a lot of different factors. There isn't, is the right light red or green or amber? It's not one of those types of questions. Every case is unique, has its own facts, has its own twists and turns, strengths and weaknesses. Every case.
Right.
So for you to just ask me that generally, I can't answer that. I'm not a magician and I don't see the future. If you want me to look at the case, look at the documents, look at the evidence you have, I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't go to people at the grocery store and ask them if I need open heart surgery.
Mm-hmm.
That's not their business. That's not their expertise. They want to recommend a cut of beef or a steak or something like that. Okay, they know that kind of stuff. But they don't know law stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make them better or worse individuals. It's just not what they're trained in. And people who are lawyers or practice in civil rights, they're in a special lane, just like people who practice bankruptcy or people who practice family law and divorces or criminal law. That's a special lane. And the attorney has to have some knowledge, experience, and expertise to try to do those cases. If you think you have a civil rights case, whether your case is over or not over, talk to me. Talk to a lawyer. Talk to a civil rights lawyer that does cases against CPS. Georgette, as a general rule, I tell people, if your case is still open, you might not want to sue CPS right now. General rule. There's 1,000 exceptions. Have I ever recommended someone to file a lawsuit against CPS while the case was still open? Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have. Well, when did you do that? Oh, there's so many different intricacies and exceptions. We could spend the next week talking about them. I got 35 years of experience. You think I can explain everything to you in 30 minutes?
Mm-mm.
I can't. So it just depends, Georgia.
Okay. And also, oftentimes we have people who refuse, for example, when people refuse to when people refuse to listen to their attorneys. Say you hired a juvenile dependency attorney, you hired one, and you refuse to listen to your attorney. Don't expect a good outcome on your case, because an attorney, a special qualified attorney, knows what he or she is doing. Mr. Davis, when I worked with Mr. Davis, I didn't realize how he has the back office working. And what it is that all the assigned attorneys, he has family law attorneys, he has juvenile dependency attorneys, he has criminal attorneys, and you have it. So Mr. Davis, when it comes to CPS cases or family law cases or any case, he's hands-on type of attorney. So he's involved with his people. So if any an associate working with Davis, that doesn't mean that Davis is not working on the case. Davis is working on the case, just behind the scene. And if you refuse to listen to your court, your attorney that you hired, then again, don't expect good outcome. If the attorney says, do not speak to the social worker, and then you go behind the attorney's back and you open your mouth to the social worker and you start writing, um, starting a smear campaign against the judge and the social worker, and you send them letters and you do this and you do this, you're already sabotaging your case. Because your attorney is telling you to do one thing and you do another. Then you lose the case. Then you blame the attorney for losing the case. And then that's not right. And this is real talk for a reason. I need to educate you guys to let you know what you're doing is harming you and the children.
You know, Georgette, what you're saying is very true, but here's the problem.
Ridiculous.
You know, have you ever talked to a friend or a family member and you just couldn't get through to them?
Yes, all the time.
Right. Well, imagine a person who calls you or calls me and I tell them something. They really don't know me. They don't have that relationship. And if they're that type of person, they're not going to listen to a family member.
Right.
How are they going to listen to you? And I see so many people go off into the sunset and go right over the edge of the cliff. And they think they're right. They think they know best. You know, when I was a 5-year lawyer, I used to argue with people all the time and try to make them see. You know what I found out? That I was beating my head against the wall.
Yep.
Right? It was like me talking to my brother about something regarding family business or my mother, family matter. He's not going to believe me. Right? He's not going to take my advice. And you know what? I might be wrong. Right? But if you're playing the odds, you might want to listen to a 35-year lawyer.
Exactly.
But if you think you know best, okay, go for it.
And also,
and you know, I do want to tell you this. I have gotten many calls over the years that start with, "Hey, Mr. Davis, how are you? This is, you know, Joe Jones. I talked to you 5 months ago. I should have listened to you." Okay, Mr. Jones, understood. Where do you want to go from here? I want to do blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's going to cost you X plus Y fees. Yep. Well, when I talked to you 5 months ago, it was only X fees. I go, well, you know, now you screwed the case up.
Yep.
I got to fix it now. That takes more work and more time and more effort. But I don't get upset anymore because people are people and they're not always going to listen to you. They're going to think, you know, they're that 1 in 1,000 person where you're wrong.
I understand that part. It's just that I become extremely passionate, and only because the children are the ones suffering. And because I had a caller that said she just bought a Mercedes and she's contemplating whether or not she should sell it and get her kids back. To me, there is no question about that. The children are the most important part of your life. You do whatever possible to get your children back. But don't get advice from mommy and daddy. Don't get advice from auntie and uncle. Don't get advice from your sister, which is most of the people I speak with. They get advice from family members and best friends. And I tell them the same thing. Are they attorneys? No, they're not. Then why are you getting advice from them? Why in the name of God?
But that's how we people and human beings operate. You know, many years ago, when my wife was alive, I went to the doctor and the doctor told me I had to have an operation to have my thyroid removed. And I scheduled the operation for a thyroidectomy. My wife pleaded with me to get a second opinion. So she found a specialist in Pasadena for me to go talk to. And I went to talk to him, and he didn't ask for my records or anything, but he did an examination and we talked. And he said to me, whoever told you you needed a thyroidectomy shouldn't be practicing medicine.
Wow.
And I told him the doctor that told me. And he said, don't do it. I was concerned about his advice because it was so contrary to a doctor that I had trusted. So I found another person to get a third opinion from. And this guy actually sent me to some tests, something called a fine needle biopsy and a ultrasound. And I went to a doctor over in Alhambra that does nothing but fine needle biopsies and ultrasounds on thyroids. You talk about a specialty. I went to this guy and he told me after doing it, and he looked at all the results, he says, Mr. Davis, you don't need a thyroidectomy.
Wow.
He says, you don't need it. I don't know why Dr. A would tell you that. That was probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Today, have my thyroid, no thyroidectomy, no problems, knock on wood, but haven't had a problem since then.
Thank God.
So, it's best, I tell people best, if you don't believe me or you have doubts, get another opinion. Get a couple of opinions, because most lawyers will talk to you. They'll give you a free consultation. I'm pushing right now. I'm doing a lot of free consultations on the phone right now.
15 minutes. Right.
I think it's running on the banner below. You can go to Calendly and book a free, consultation with me. And a lot of times, the calls go over the allotted time, but I'll talk to you. That's no problem. I'm interested in trying to help as many people as we can.
And thank you for doing that, Mr. Davis, because a lot of people were asking for free consultations as well. And I did address that issue too. So thank you for providing that for the callers, because they do need to speak to you and get as much as advice as possible for their case. But again, I just want to let you guys know that you cannot, don't just get one opinion and not consult another attorney, only because I had another call where he spoke to a family law attorney. That family law attorney today told her that to do AYZ, right? And I know that AYZ is wrong because, again, like I told you guys on my shows, this is what I live by. Everything Mr. David writes is right here. Okay, and he even gives us hints in this book. So AYZ was not going to work for her, and I told her that it's not going to work for you, and she needed to get Mr. Davis' advice. She said, no, I'm going to go for the family law attorney because she's cheap. This isn't about cheap. You cannot go to a Rolls Royce dealership like Mr. Davis says to me and expect Nissan prices. It's not going to work. There is no way a case can only cost $5,000 to handle, especially if you versus the state. If you're going against the state and the county, for the love of God, it's not going to be $5,000 is not going to be enough. So you guys need to think realistically. What's the important thing is to get quality of a person that will fight your case.
Hey, Georgette, Jessica asked this question. Any advice when pursuing intrinsic fraud charges? Jessica, I want you to ask another question because I don't understand that question. Intrinsic fraud is usually a civil matter where you're suing someone in some type of, business deal. It doesn't really relate to CPS matters. But if you maybe explain further, I can address that for you. And if you have questions, by the way, go ahead and type them on whatever platform you're on. I think we're streaming live right now on 8 different social media platforms. But Georgette and I can see all the questions right here on our screen, and we can address those questions. So go ahead and ask them. I think we have about, I don't know how much more time we have, but if we have questions, I'll keep going. Do you have any questions for me today, Georgette?
Yes, I do. Somebody just texted me a question to ask you because she said she cannot appear because she's afraid. Okay, she asked in her 6-month review hearing, she was told by the court appointed attorney that the 6 months review hearing, she's definitely going to get the children back immediately. However, her 6 months review hearing was yet on Friday, and she did not get her children back. And then there was new allegation that she abused one of the child in visitation time. Foster parent accused her of that. So she said, I believe they set me up to fail because there was no abuse. There was nothing. I was playing with my children and we were getting along, and my kids even cried when I was time for them to go. And the social worker was asking me questions, or the monitor was asking me questions during the visit, and all I said to her is that I don't want to speak with you right now, Miss So and so, because I am visiting with my kids. And that same monitor wrote down that she was abusing the children during the monitored visit. She said, what should she do?
She should immediately speak to her lawyer, assuming the case is in California, or actually anywhere. Speak to your lawyer, whether you're a court-appointed or your privately retained lawyer, and come up with a strategy. If I were her, I'd probably, assuming everything is true, I'd probably want to set the 6-month review for what they call in California a contest, which is really a trial to challenge the recommendations of the social worker not to give the child back to you. You know, the way the law is written here in California may be the same in other states, but you should check with a lawyer licensed there, is that the social worker must return the child to you at the 6-month review hearing, unless the social worker can prove by a preponderance of evidence that you're still a risk to the child. And a risk to the child is assumed if you haven't completed or significantly participated in the court-ordered services by the judge at the disposition hearing. Okay? So there's a lot of ways that they can get out and not return the child to you, even if they say, oh, we're going to return the child to you. Have I ever seen cases where they said they were going to return the child and they didn't? Many. Have I ever seen cases where they said they were going to return the child and they did? Yes, I have seen them. But, you know, it's kind of a thing you don't want to gamble on. At least I wouldn't if they were my children. Some people feel differently, and I respect that. Georgette, any other questions, or you want to wrap it up?
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
When one parent loses their parental rights, what happens to the other parent if the other parent is the non-offended parent? And if they do lose their rights, can they get it back?
Okay, depending on what state you are in. California.
All of my questions are California.
If you lose your parental rights, you can't get them back unless you bring some type of lawsuit showing that it was fraudulently done, or you appeal it and you win on an appeal. But I'm going to be honest with you, that's very difficult and rare.
What about if one parent loses their parental rights? Can the grandmother lose her access or any type of reunification with the child?
The grandmother? The grandmother under California law doesn't have a right to reunification services unless the grandmother appeared in the case and got those ordered by the ordered by the court, which is very unique. What I tell a lot of grandparents to do is, you know, in California, a child can have more than 2 parents. You know, if this is several years old, they can file for what's called presumed parent status, which gives you equal footing as a biological parent. So if you want to get some type of services, you have to win your presumed parent motion. And that's something that, you know, former caretakers, grandparents who raise children should file.
Right. Okay.
But, you know, that's separate from the parents.
Right.
The grandparent actually has to get a lawyer and appear in court and start asserting the grandparent's rights that she has or that she could have under something like a de facto parent status or presumed parent status motion.
Okay, another question. What if the non-offending parent lost their rights, right? I mean, sorry, the two parents. One parent lost their rights, and the non-offending parent had nothing to do with the case. This person has been working. He had no idea the mother was dating a drug user or an abuser, and the social worker automatically accuses the non-offending parent that they knew about it all along. They knew about the abuse all along when they didn't know about the abuse. So that person was told that if the mother lost her parental rights, he automatically loses his parental rights.
No, they have to separately take his parental rights. But if they get to that stage of the case,
Right.
he may be, and it depends on the facts, in no better position than the mother. So he should file, a 388 petition, try to get things changed around, and if he loses the 388 petition, file an appeal.
Right.
Or perhaps, consider filing a lawsuit.
Right.
But, all of these things aren't guaranteed. I don't want to say that these are going to work every time because they're not.
Right.
But, people ask me, what can I do?
Right.
I tell you what you can do, but you might want to ask me what's probable. Georgette, if you ask me what can I do, being a lawyer, I tell you all the different things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you probably should be asking me, if I do those things, is it probable that I'm going to win? Well, that's a whole different question, a whole different analysis. Are the Dodgers going to win tonight?
We don't know. But do you
Really?
believe in the Dodgers?
You don't know? You don't know? Right. Same thing for, legal CPS cases.
Right. And everybody thinks their case is different. Yes, everybody's case is different, but what makes it different is the county the case is in, the type of allegation, but most of the allegations are the same. It's abuse and neglect, abuse and neglect, abuse and neglect. That's all I hear. So when you are dealing with two parents, and one parent is telling you, I want my kids back, Mr. Davis, and the other parent is saying, no, Mr. Davis, you shouldn't leave the children with this parent because this parent is the abuser. When you have two parents that want to fight for the same cause, and they both think one of them will have the child or the children, what's your advice to parents like that?
Are their parents aligned or are they fighting each other?
They're together, but they're fighting each other. Towards the end of the case, they begin to, to retaliate against each other because the social worker would say, she said, he said, he said, she said, and then they start fighting together, which is just a division that the social worker is causing between the two parents.
Right. Well, you know what? Have you ever heard of an old strategy called divide and conquer?
Yes, of course. I speak about that on my show.
So that's what social workers are great at doing in situations with parents. I mean, they're great at it.
They're really good.
How does a politician get people to do crazy things?
Right.
Social workers are great at convincing parents to do crazy things.
Right.
And they're trained at it.
They're trained.
Yeah.
I don't think they're trained, Mr. Davis. I think you just have to have it in you. You're either evil inside or you're not. You can't train a good person to do that.
Okay.
I mean, come on now. Seriously, sir. If you tell me, Georgette, I want you to go sit there and I want you to lie to this parent so you can steal his or her child, and I say, okay, like it's not going to do anything for me.
Right. Right. You are one of those rare occasions or rare people that would maintain the morality that they have and they were raised with. The problem is that everyone isn't like you. And I don't know if you realize that or you can accept that. Have you ever seen a statistical bell curve? 5% of the people are this way, the other 5 are this way.
Right.
What about the 90% of the people on the bell curve? They could go either way.
Okay, I got that. Now another question, one last question.
Mhm.
When somebody tells you, when you take somebody's case, right, or they call us, and then they say, "Oh, I went to I went to medical school. I have this education. I own my own business, and I'm successful, and this and this and that," and then they steal their children, right, because of an allegation made against them, and then the social worker tells them, "Hey, don't hire Davis. He will never go to court for you. He'll send other people to go to court for you." However, what people don't understand is that you are assigned an attorney from the office, and that attorney will show up to the court hearings. But when a social worker says that to somebody, it's most likely telling them, if you hire Davis, we are going to be fucked. In other words, excuse my language, sir, but sorry. But well, we're going to be screwed. There you go. Sorry.
That was quite an adverb or verb or adjective.
Sorry. But
listen, if you come to our office and you want to hire us, you can hire me to personally show up in court. Okay. Or I will assign a lawyer, one of my associates, who I supervise, that will show up in court. Now,
Right.
Guess what? I'm more expensive than my associate.
Yep.
Okay. My associates win cases all the time.
Right.
Okay. Because we talk, they ask me strategy. Just before the show, one of the reasons I was late for the show is I was doing a strategy call with a client and one of my associates who's assigned to the case.
Right.
And the client asked for a strategy call with me for an upcoming hearing in June. I got on the call, and to be honest with you, I made a correction, the direction change for the case. They were going this way, and I said, "Stop, let's go this way." Okay. Based upon the conversation with my associate and the client. 3 heads are better than 2.
Right. And also, the point I'm trying to make earlier is that just because you went to medical school, it doesn't mean you understand how a demonic entity works. You don't have the same mindset as them. You don't know how they work. So you going to medical school is not going to save your behind because you went to medical school. And if you
Right.
did go to medical school and you own your 4 businesses or 3 businesses or a business in general, whatever, it doesn't mean that you understand how a state case works. So even if you point out their mistakes, it doesn't mean you got them where you want them to be. A lot of people say, "Oh, I pointed out their mistakes." They put somebody else's name on the reports. They put this person's name. I'm not that person. They put this phone number. They put this. They're all wrong. I pointed it out to them. I know what I'm doing. I'm smart. I know what I'm doing. No, you don't know crap. Nothing. You don't know nothing. You don't know anything when it comes to CPS cases. So if you have that mentality, then I feel sorry for you. And I'm telling you this in front of an attorney that I work for. And he literally mentored me with everything that I know today. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know what the hell CPS was all about. I would be lost in La La Land. But this man opened my eyes to so much that I was not aware that the system is that corrupt. So again, just because you have a degree, it doesn't mean that you know anything about CPS. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Davis.
I would agree with you.
Well, that's the first.
Yeah, we might have to edit that out.
It's so rare.
Grace is our producer. Grace, edit that out.
Yeah.
Listen, hey, Tambra Taylor, who's watching on Facebook, one of the Facebook pages, has asked a question. And because, Tambra, you are the only person to ask a question, I'm going to take time and answer your question. And if you have other questions, I want you to call me at 626-446-6442. I'm going to give you a free consultation.
Yep.
Okay. So Tamara,
Good.
you said, how do you get a no contact order modified? Now I'm going to assume a couple things, that the no contact order is in a juvenile dependency case and, it's in California.
Right.
I'm licensed in California. Ms. Taylor, I don't know if you're in another state. You should consult a lawyer there, but it's probably generally the same. I'm not sure though. Okay, so in California, what you would do is you would file a 388 petition. Okay. And in that 388 petition, you'd state facts as to why it would be in the best interest of the child and what circumstances have changed. And you need to have the facts, and you need, of course, to have the law on your side. 388s are generally liberally construed by the courts. And the first thing that happens when you file a 388 is the court decides whether they're going to give you the hearing. If the court decides they're not going to give you a hearing, file a notice of appeal. Talk to your lawyer, of course. The second thing the court can decide is they are going to give you a hearing. And if they give you a hearing, you have to prove that the order should be modified. The no contact order should be modified. You could win that or you could lose it. And if you lose it, if you have a good case, talk to your lawyer about appealing it. But that's generally how you modify a court order. Now, Ms. Taylor says, repeat that number.
It's right there.
Ms. Taylor, if you look at the screen, that's a good point, Georgia. the number on the screen right below me, kind of like in a pinkish purplish color, is 888-888-6582. That number actually goes to my office, Ms. Taylor. Okay, so call that number, or you can call another number that goes directly to the same place, 626-446-6442, and I'm going to give you a free consultation. Call today, make an appointment, and I'll help you out. Because you helped me out by asking a question, and you stayed to the end of the show. All right, Ms. Taylor, so call, and I'll give you that consultations. Georgette, I don't see any other questions being posted. Right? Do you?
No.
Okay. Did you have any last questions you wanted to ask me?
Yes. What would you tell somebody who lost their rights and it's been a year into the case and the kids were adopted? I mean, the case was closed a year ago and the kids were adopted.
Unless you can show some type of fraud and make a motion to set aside the adoption, there's nothing that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might be able to make that motion. You can file some type of lawsuit if you think there was wrongdoing. There's also something called a writ of quantum nobis.
Mm-hmm.
That's a common law remedy in California, where you can right a wrong, right an injustice in the past, and if the law and the facts are supporting you,
right,
you might be able to get that overturned.
Right.
Those are extreme remedies, very difficult to win on. But then again, you ask, what can you do? And if you ask me, well, what's the probabilities on each of those? I'd have to say, I don't know until you show me your file and let me review it in the transcripts, because every case is different.
Right. Okay. That's the last question I had. Somebody asked me that earlier, and I just was going to ask you about it.
Okay. So this is what I want you to do. Let's do this again tomorrow at some time. Let's pick a time also. I'll talk to Grace about that, our producer. Try to get a call, and maybe you and I can bump heads together on the live stream every day for 45 minutes or so.
Okay.
Wait, Jessica says, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that last term you just described, please? Writ of quantum nobis, Nobis. So you might want to Google it, and it'll give you some further explanation. And writ is WRIT. And Jessica, I believe you have spelled quantum correctly in your post. Jessica is watching us live on this live stream from YouTube. Jessica's watching us on our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, by the way. Everyone that has watched today, everyone that has posted a question, sincerely appreciate it. And Georgette, let's try to do this again tomorrow. Fight CPS with Miss G.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate that. And I know that others appreciate that too as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm going to try to behave myself on your show because I'm really not like that.
Promises, promises.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.